Good evening. My name is Sandra Fritz. I'm the chairperson of the Shrewsbury School Committee, and welcome to our meeting of November 15th. Tonight's meeting is broadcast live on Selco channels 29 and 329 and streamed live on Shrewsbury Media Connections website. I'd like to thank Liz Poplowski from SMC, who's helping with our meeting this evening. First on the agenda is public participation. No one has asked to address the committee this evening. However, in the future, if anybody wishes to do so, please contact us at k.12.ma.us. I think I got that right. Pretty good. Yeah. All right, next is chairperson and members report. Anything? Nothing? Thank you. Next is superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz. I wanted to thank everyone involved with the school district who helped observe the holiday of Veterans Day over the past several days. I wanted to recognize in particular Oak Middle School. They always do a full school assembly for Veterans Day. That's a longstanding tradition there. The last couple of years, they've something new that's been, I think, particularly meaningful is that the three different Oak students during the assembly live in front of the entire student body and faculty and staff actually interviewed three veterans who are parents who are connected with the school community about their experiences in the military. And they did a terrific job, and it was very insightful, I thought, for all the students there. The 8th grade band performed not only the national anthem, but military march as well. And it was just a terrific environment. Several other veterans were also there in attendance who had been invited to take part. And we also want to thank our neighbors from South High School in Worcester, their junior ROTC, Air Force junior ROTC color guard was there for that ceremony as well. And then today at Patton School, their Patton All-School Meeting, which is known as a Patton Pride Meeting, included several veterans who were connected to that school community, either parents of students or of faculty and staff members. And one of the parents, who's an Army veteran, spoke to the students as well. The Patton, several students had presentations of posters, other things relative to Veterans Day, and the Patton third grade sang a selection of the official military branch songs, which they also presented at the town Veterans Day ceremony this past Saturday. And they did everyone did a terrific job. So congratulations to everyone at Oak and Patton. There were two standout recognitions, but there were a variety of recognitions across the school district, which is, of course, important for us to do as part of our mission to help our students appreciate our democratic tradition. And that is Superintendent's report this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Sawyer. First on the agenda this evening, we're going to have an update on the RISE program. And the mission of this program is to provide students who qualify for ongoing special education services after high school up until they turn age 22 with the skills and experiences they need to be successful members of our local community. And we have several members of the RISE community here today, along with Ms. Meg Belcito, who's our Assistant Superintendent for Student Services. Good evening. Once you get settled, I'll have you introduce yourselves for everyone who's watching at home.
All right. Thank you for having us tonight. We're excited to actually give this very positive and uplifting presentation to all of you. I'm Meg Belcito. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Student Services.
And I'm Meg Bartlett. I'm the Assistant Director for Special Education.
I'm Erin Riscosti. I'm one of the teachers at RISE.
Christine Peller, I'm the RISE Program Coordinator.
I'm Jen Tabor, I'm the Retail Manager.
And I'm Christy Menard, I'm the other special education teacher of the program.
Welcome.
Great.
All right. So it's been an exciting time for the RISE students, staff, and families since our last update to you, which was March of 2023. For review for the audience and everyone here, the goal of RISE is to provide a post-secondary transition program for our students aged 18 to 22 who through the team process qualify for additional learning opportunities following their high school experience. The goal of the program is to provide students with skills and experiences they need to successfully and independently navigate the local community. The focus is to increase students' overall independence with functional life skills, employment opportunities, and community access. As you're aware, we put a request for proposals out last year, or over the past 2 years. We went through the whole process of looking at different spaces, hoping and waiting, and we did receive a proposal from Chatteroni Properties to lease 557 Main Street. And from there, we continue to thank the Chatteroni family for helping us with building renovations, business insights, advice, support, and certainly, as you can see pictured here, how our thoughts came to fruition. You see the retail space, the classroom, the kitchen, and our social leisure spaces. We also want to thank our Director of Nursing, Noelle Freeman, and her husband, Steve, formerly, for all the landscaping in the front through donations and their giving of such time and effort with their adult children. They did put countless hours in, and it absolutely looks amazing.
All right, so we started this project last year when we only had an enrollment of 3 students. We quickly knew we had to get this going because the next year we now have an enrollment of 16. As you can see, students will be joining our program as we continue to do this. But as students get older, we'll start to slowly also see students age out, and we will celebrate their graduation from RISE intermittently throughout the school year. Look at those faces.
So as you can see, pictures speak 1,000 words. Here you can see the students in action. So these are some of our trips out into the community. We went to Tugis earlier this year. You've got a picture of Five Guys. There is a picture of some internships at the Department of Fire Services, and then just enjoying, the local library in Shrewsbury, as well as time in the classroom through various activities. We have 2 vans that we use and have been able to experience these outings and, just provide opportunities for them to socialize within the RISE program, but also out in the community as well.
It's also really exciting to see when you drive through the center of town during school hours. You can see the students walking around with staff around through the school community, really exploring and interacting with the town.
So our students moved into 557 Main Street over the summer during the summer program. We quickly hired Ms. Jen Tabor as our business manager. She started in August, and within a few months, she really laid the plans to prepare the store from purchasing items, getting our POS system up and running, our furniture installation, and so much more. She's been a key eye in merchandising and using our Cricut and doing our screen printing across the board to really create all the products with the students. Our store is really a mix of candy and snacks and a lot of Shrewsbury products and apparel. We also will be rotating seasonal pop-ups throughout as well. Really all of these decisions that we're making for our products are in context with the support of our students and what is really going to allow them to continue to grow and work on providing customer service, inventory, and cashier training. Really, Maple and Main provides that opportunity for students to practice a variety of transferable employment skills, things that can go to other environments and mimics future employment opportunities. I think when you come in, you really see that our retail store, the students can practice many soft skills like customer service, restocking, and custodial.
And before we go to the next slide, we're going to have a holiday vendor sale. Pop-up sale.
December 7th, we're going to have a pop-up winter market where we're going to invite local vendors to come in into the RISE space, and our store will be open, and then the vendors will be there as well. So a nice opportunity to get everyone really in there and involved.
You already said 8. You already have.
We already have 8 confirmed vendors and a whole other list of others that may come.
And the times for that event, Jen?
4:30 to 7:30.
All right, so before we show this video, like we were saying, on November 3rd, we had our grand opening, and we had an overwhelming audience here at Maple and Main. If anyone in the audience was there, it was definitely heartwarming, and you really saw the students embrace their program. We do want to make sure that we extend our thanks for the countless hours of the Design Team Advisory Committee and our newly formed Capital Campaign Committee. They put forth so much effort. We welcome their feedback, their input, advice, and support from paint colors, inventory selection, and marketing. Our students are central to the work we do here at RISE. There was never a doubt that they would be the ones cutting the ribbon, welcoming people into Maple and Maine. So now we're going to show you our countdown video.
Is everybody ready? Yeah! 1, 2, 3, cut! All right, thank you, everybody. The students are going to head back into Maple and Maine and get ready for our tour.
Do it every time.
Well, all of our students have an opportunity to work at Maple and Maine. We have several other internship opportunities because we want our students to be able to have internship opportunities that align with their personal vision and their family's vision. And we want to make sure that they have several different kinds of internship opportunities so that they can really refine and figure out what they like to do and what they don't like to do, whether they like to work outside or inside, office, warehouse, all these things. So all these experiences are crucial so that they can begin to hone down and find what they really want to do. So we have, keeping in mind that this program grew by 13 students, and we were able to procure all these internship opportunities so that everybody had at least one internship, and some students are working at 2 internships currently. And it really speaks to the tenacity of the team. I also want to give a shout out to Christine, who does a great job reaching out to local businesses and nonprofits to get some of these internship opportunities. So some samples that we have up here, we have a couple students working for the Worcester State girls hockey team. They get the locker room ready for game day. They do laundry. They clean the locker room. We have some students at Apple Tree Arts. They help organize and clean the classrooms. We have several students working for Shrewsbury Public Schools in different capacities, doing laundry, cleaning. Laundry's a big hit at RISE. Lots of kids like to do that, so that's good. And we also have some students at the Department of Fire Services. I always forget, is it Stowe or Sudbury? Stowe. And that's the facility that trains the firefighters in the area. So they really work to organize some of the training materials that those fire cadets will be using. So those are just a sampling of some of the opportunities that we have.
So talking about budget and funding sources, as you know, we have 2 teachers. We have related services. We don't have someone there full-time in each of the related services area. It's a combined 1.0 of speech and language, occupational therapy, and counseling. We have obviously 1 retail manager, and we also have 6 job coaches. The funding sources, as you know, came from the American Rescue Plan as seed money, and then we also are using our 240 grant, our IDEA grant. The total program costs for FY24 are just over $1.1 million. The cost per pupil is less than what we would otherwise be sending if these same students went to an out-of-district placement.
All right, the district uses a contracted service for custodial support twice a week that began in October of 2023. The RISE students and staff work on a daily basis to bring trash outside to the dumpsters, restock the bathrooms and kitchen, sweep the floors, and clean surfaces. As you can see in the photo, one of our students is mopping the floor. The district installed a video surveillance and alarm system during the summer of 2023 that is on our network and has a real-time view and approximately 3 weeks of storage capacity. Keycard entry was installed at the rear exit door and the door from the retail space into the learning environment. The cameras and keycard access were installed by the school department contractors. We purchased a cash register / point of sale system and software. We use Square. We expect to primarily have cash-free payments, but will inevitably have some portion of cash receipts. We have an on-site drop safe and make regular bank deposits.
And as you can see in this picture here, the reason we have some of the students doing some of the custodial work is because it really focuses and targets on motor skill, and that would be the trash sweeping and cleaning of the surfaces, as well as the functional academic components of it, of inventory restocking of our kitchen and Maple and Main, as well as the bathroom.
So a team consisting of myself along with Dr. Lazat, the Assistant Superintendent of Community Partnerships and Wellbeing, Shrewsbury parents, and community members have already begun to meet and discuss fundraising support of the RISE program. A RISE information kit will be finalized as a tool to begin to share with potential donors in an effort to share the mission, goals, and further details. And we're working with Katrina Lawlier on that. We're hoping for that to be finished by the new year. The purpose of the capital campaign is to further expand learning opportunities, transportation, community employment for our students. We'd like to extend an opportunity to the community to consider joining us on this journey by becoming one of our earliest donors. We're offering multiple levels of giving, proudly displaying the names, as you can see in the photo, on the donor wall inside Maple and Main. We have a pretty aggressive goal to fill that wall by December 1st. And so large tiles are 1,000 and small tiles are 500. And we welcome any and all donations to further the programming.
We just wanted to say thank you to our families of the RISE students for really trusting us and coming on this journey with us and really celebrating the opening of our first retail store.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments? Stephanie?
The day was phenomenal. The work behind it is immense, and so thank you all for all of the work. And I think anytime you come and talk about this program, it's really, it continues to be heartwarming, not just that day. Help me just understand, though, financially running a capital campaign, where we put those dollars and how those dollars can be spread over multiple years so that they are sort of, I mean, the contributions are for this program, and we want them to stay for this program on their own. And so is that connected up with the Colonial Fund, or like where are we segregating them?
It's separate. So before Patrick Collins left, we set up an account that would just be for RISE donations.
Okay.
So when they click on the link, if you go on the website,
The Shrewsbury Public Schools website, under
Yeah.
the Special Education Department, RISE is a drop-down there. And there's a small box for small donations.
and it goes right to, what's the word, is it donor pay? Is that where it goes? It goes, I forget the name of it.
Okay.
School pay, donor
Yeah.
pay?
And
But it goes into a separate account. And then from there, so the idea is not, a capital campaign is not to like keep the lights on or keep the program doors open. We're really looking at it as ways to give opportunity for us to expand things like outdoor learning, further community access, and maybe that's through transportation. So there's definitely a lot of conversation about how we can, for example, we go to Waypoint, well, you can talk about Waypoint Adventure.
Yeah, we work with Waypoint Adventures, and they do adaptive outdoor adventure activities. So with them, we've worked with them, and this year we went rock climbing so far. We're going to go indoor and outdoor kayaking. We're going to go cross-country skiing. But just being able to provide students with those opportunities so that they can learn what they want to do long-term, and if these are areas that they might want to explore and become part of their habits and become part of their hobbies in the future.
I think that's awesome, and I want it all to happen, and I want your board to be filled. And December 1st, everybody sign up right now to help you out.
Meg's aggressive with her time.
Exactly. Go. And right in time for end of year giving.
And I feel like Dr. Lazat, you might have come up with that timeline. I'm looking back there. I'm not blaming it.
Comes up with lots of good ideas. But we are not formally a 501c3 created for this. Like, so is it tax deductible donations? I am happy to take this question offline, or
No, it's
someone
okay.
can. I'm just like trying to understand where the money goes and how we can most promote it, because people like to give. So
Sure.
Yeah.
My understanding, the December one, that was going to be the quiet phase. It's not quiet anymore of the donor piece, but that's okay. Because people know how to reach out to the school district if you're interested, and we're excited to try to get people connected with the real positive energy of this program and what it's doing for our community. Just similar to the Colonial Fund, because the school district is a nonprofit public entity, the same types of rules apply. I cannot advise people on their taxes. That said, there is, when you go to school pay or you go to the Colonial Fund, we can make sure the same shows up for RISE. There is an identification number for the Shrewsbury Public Schools that people can use as part of their tax preparation.
Thank you very much for clarifying.
And when you do click on the link, it does say RISE and what it is and where it would be going.
Thank you.
I'm glad you asked that, because that was a question for corporate matching. Because I think people will want to know if it has that number. I know the company I work for, we have to have that. So that is available if people go on to do a corporate match. Perfect. Anyone else? Questions? Go ahead.
I also wanted to congratulate you on a wonderful grand opening. It was just such a special morning. I had a question about how the students are adapting to having customers in the store now and how that's been going so far.
It's been going really well. Honestly, they come in, they're the star of the show. And the customers love it. They look forward to having their tour, around the store and to hear a little bit about the items, and especially just to have the students check them out. You can see them getting all excited.
That's great.
They've picked up the point of sale system very fast. You wouldn't know that they've only been doing it for 2 weeks, so it's really impressive.
And just, I guess, maybe to broadcast your hours to everyone that's watching at home.
So they're going to fluctuate over the next 2 months. In January, we hope to have a more set schedule. We are posting all of our hours on social media, so we'll continue to do that as we set specific times.
Great. Thank you.
So how could they follow you on social media, Jen?
Our Instagram is Maple Maine Shrewsbury, and our Facebook page is Maple and Maine.
I also, a couple of weeks ago when they had the opening, that was just amazing. What really stuck with me, I mean, we were in tears listening to them sing, and they're cheering each other on. And really what stuck with me is how much pride that they have in themselves and their classmates. And then we, as they were going through and giving us the tour, they were talking about their internships, and they were so excited about that. I'm looking forward to seeing them continue and to see what happens to the program. I'm so glad that we have it in our town and that we can keep the students here. Have we run into any challenges in the first few weeks? I mean, you would never know, because on day one, when everybody came up with all their goodies to be bought, everybody seemed to they were doing this forever. But has there been any challenges within the store or within the space? Maybe there hasn't been.
We run out of a few things.
Okay. That's a good problem.
I think I've been doing this for a long time, and it's probably the most favorite event that I've attended. It was so student-centered, and it's one of those things you work really hard, and then you see it come to fruition, and you have all done such an amazing job. But the kids, the students, I should say, were so happy, and they had such pride in what they were doing. It was just a great, great day. I feel up talking about it. But I couldn't go shopping. I had to get home. I had a business meeting, so I went Monday. I had a personal shopper. The kids are doing so great in there, and for anyone who hasn't visited, the products are wonderful. Yes, they're kind of Shrewsbury centered, but that's what we want. And as things change, I think it's just such a good thing for our town on so many levels. So thank you for everything that you're doing there. Question I do have is, what is I think I've asked this maybe last year too, what is the total maximum students that we could have in this program? I mean, there's probably going to be a point where we can't have the services, or there's not enough space.
Yep. So one of the things that we've talked about as a group, and we'll continue to watch our numbers, we have the projected numbers. Not all students necessarily will definitely come to RISE. It will depend on the student profile and their needs and the parents' vision. If a student joins, they may also not stay till they're 22. So that can change too if they choose to accept their diploma or certificate of attainment. I think one of the things we're looking at, and they can definitely speak to it more. The students, so say there's 25 students, all 25 are not in the building all at the same time. They might be at the start of the day, they go out to internships, community access, all kinds of things could be happening. And there are times when they are all there right now for I was told Dr. Sawyer about Karaoke Friday and different special events that they might all be there for certain academics or whatever it might be in the schedule. But we are thinking that for the building and the capacity of the current staffing level, we would max out at probably 30.
30. And if we did not have that many students in the district because we're looking at sustainability and long-term for the program, would there be thoughts of looking for students from another district to come here on a tuition basis, which helps them and their skills, but also it has a financial impact for us as well?
We definitely have talked about that, and we think it would be a great idea if we have that opportunity. Right now, we feel like we'll probably be just with Shrewsbury students. I have had a couple people reach out and ask if there would be an opportunity for us to consider tuitioning in students, which is, it's a compliment and exciting to think about that possibility. But I feel like right now it would be a little while before we'd be able to say that we could do it. But like you said, if numbers change, if things look a certain way where we would open it up and reach out to other districts or the people that have reached out to us, we certainly could consider it and do that.
Great, thank you. And again, thank you for everything you're doing. This is such a wonderful program, and it was a lot of work and a lot of logistics, opening a building and how this is all, and it's really come together so well, so thank you.
Thanks.
Dr. Sawyer, comments or questions?
Just want to say thank you. This is a tremendous success for the community as a whole, not only the school district. You can see it in the students. You saw it in the grand opening ceremony, the photographs you shared this evening. I had the pleasure of stopping by today in between meetings on my way back to Town Hall and was able to have my own personal shoppers as well. I think I had two, actually. And were able to they were just tremendous. And it was just it was a community environment. It was a business place environment. And with the guidance of Christine and Jen, it was just superb. But again, that's one terrific, but one facet of a very significant program that goes far beyond the walls of the building in the center of town. The teaching work that Erin and Christy are doing with the students, all the job coaches, the support staff, and our related services staff. They're getting a very, very high-quality educational program that includes a retail business that's right on site, plus access to lots of other community businesses and organizations where they can really try to find their niche in a community here in Shrewsbury, hopefully in Shrewsbury or here in central Massachusetts, and really grow into independent and happy adults in our community, and that's something that I think is really a tribute and a credit to you. To Meg Bartlett and Meg Belcito, their leadership, their vision for this, certainly everybody involved who Meg was sure to thank in the grand opening. It really is a huge success story and something that we all should be very proud of. So thank you, and we're looking forward to more shopping, and we're looking forward to that. I know those hours as they start to stabilize, they're typically weekdays during the middle of the day at this point, but we'll continue. But the December 7th, we'll make sure we communicate that out to the community for the pop-up, and it's really, I think this is going to become a real exemplar for this kind of programming around the Commonwealth and even the nation. So congratulations, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we are going to have an update on the Shrewsbury High School Career Technical Education and Career Exploration. And with us tonight are Dr. Jane Lazat, she's our Assistant Superintendent for Community Partnerships and Wellbeing, and Mr. Todd Basillo, Principal at SHS.
Good evening. Hello. Thanks, Mr. Basillo.
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Jane.
We're excited to provide an update on our career technical education, innovation, career pathways, and career exploration work. You can see a gratitude quote here. It's, as it's November and Thanksgiving time, we want to be sure to thank so many people for extending hospitality to our students, experiences and opportunities. In the photos here on the left, we have a student displaying something that he created on a 3D printer at the Blackstone Valley Hub for Workforce Development. And the two students on the right are engaged in some augmented welding. Blackstone Valley Hub we'll talk more about, but they've partnered closely with us over the past couple of months, but starting last year, really to work with piloting groups of students for access to experiential hands-on learning, and we're very grateful to them for providing these opportunities.
So currently, last year, I believe you're aware of this, we targeted incoming 9th graders and rising 10th graders for potential pathways as a result of not having access to Assabet Valley Vocational Technical High School. These are the current pathways that we're offering. We've made adjustments within our program of studies. We're in a really in-depth review right now of our program of studies. And that will be, I think, we'll wrap that up somewhere around December, present it to you in January, but there's a major overhaul happening there as it relates to what we're doing at the high school relative to programming. But these are the pathways that are currently offered at the high school, and within the memo I think we sent you with a number of students that are selected each pathway this year.
Here's a list of some of the experiential learning activities that are currently going on, as in addition to those that students experienced over the summer months. But as I said just a couple of minutes ago, Blackstone Valley Hub for Workforce Development is offering 5 opportunities focused on manufacturing for students currently, and will continue to during the school year. Those include machine tools, welding, robotics, 3D printing, and laser engraving. So we had 8 students in the October Fall 1 cohort and 8 in the November cohort, and we'll continue those opportunities in the winter and spring. Additionally, over the summer, we had students at job shadowing at Marvell Semiconductor in Westboro during the month of July. We just started, thanks to Kathleen Cohane, primarily lunch and learn opportunities on Fridays during lunch, where alumni and other community members have visited Shrewsbury High School to work with students, and we talk a little bit more about that in further slides, and those have been going well. We have a number of students signing up during lunch, which is great. Tomorrow, we strongly encourage students who are seeking employment to come to the job fair. We'll have 11 employers there. Ski Ward, Jersey Mike's, there's a whole list that we've pushed out to the students and that are on the Jobs for Student website that we have. We're expanding classroom visits. We recently had a Puma marketing rep visiting business classes. We have, coming up on the early release day, invited students to, it's not exactly one day, but from 11:30 to 4 o'clock, have career exploration at Olympus in Westboro. We have a career fair coming up. We'll be sending students to Mass Fire Academy as we have the past few years. Those are just a few of many activities. Here, pictured of students engaging with 2 alumni. Jessica Card on the left came and spoke with students, interacted about social media. And Carlos Garcia, who's an advanced coordinator at the Massachusetts Attorney General's office and a select board member. He met with 4 groups of students, as we have 4 lunches during the day. And again, these are specific to Fridays, but we have people signed up through February as of now, and we're very grateful to them.
Yeah, so I've been working closely with Dr. Lazat around trying to expand business partnerships and provide students opportunities to participate in work learning experiences. That's the buzzword when you're talking about CTE, not internships. They're similar to internships, but work learning experiences. We had a great meeting with Component Sources International in Westboro, Amazon Robotics in Westboro, Marvell Semiconductor, and Dr. Lazat worked with Moderna Therapeutics Clinical Manufacturing out of Norwood. So we're advancing our reach in terms of some of the opportunities that might present themselves to students, with the idea of providing students in their 4th year of a pathway some sort of internship / work learning based experience, so they can get their hands in the field to see if that's something that they might want to pursue post-graduation. Interestingly enough, both CSI and Amazon Robotics talked about this idea of tuition reimbursement. So when students might not choose to go to college, they might want to join the workforce, these two companies will actually pay for their schooling and hopefully advance their education. Maybe it's through engineering, maybe it's through robotics, but there's articulation agreements with local universities and providers where they could pursue a degree while working, which I think is fantastic.
Component Sources International will also be at the job fair tomorrow, as they're hiring students for after-school hours and Saturday mornings.
We've also done, in the 2 pathways that we'll talk about in terms of expanding in the program studies, is advanced manufacturing is one of those, and the next one is the biomedical science and life sciences field. Again, we looked at Charles River Laboratories in Shrewsbury, Olympus Surgical Technologies America in Westboro, Marvell Semiconductor, and Moderna, again, for potentially expanding our partnerships with providing students experiential learning opportunities outside the school day in their 4th year of study. So it'd be something that we're envisioning for seniors to participate in after getting through some prerequisite coursework through our program.
Great. The next slide is just about the job fair. But for those viewing at home, we send communication through Schoology, Mr. Bazillo's weekly updates, to students regularly, sharing what we have coming up. And sometimes students need to sign up, other times, like tomorrow, they don't need to do that. But we just ask that families encourage students to read those announcements and take advantage of those that even grab their interest a little bit, because we know that that's how we're going to, we feel confident, help students find, their purpose and what it is they'd like to explore further.
Yeah, we talk about balance too. I think having students get a part-time job while managing all their activities is really important. Working on soft skills, how do we interact with people? What's it mean to show up to work, be on time, be dressed appropriately? All those kind of soft skills that employers that we met with when we did some of our recruitment of industry partners are really missing. So there's an opportunity for parents in the community to actually, if we have students get part-time jobs, learn some of the skills they need, and hopefully refine those through our programming. So certainly, if you're viewing tonight, send your students tomorrow from 2 to 3:30. We have late bus, I believe, so
Yeah, we do.
we can get a ride home. You don't have to worry about that. We're doing a lot of work around this, trying to find offsetting funding for the programming that we're trying to bring in. We know how tight the appropriated budget is. So I've worked with Dave Ruscosi, our Director of Science Engineering, around the 1-8 Foundation. For those on the committee to recall, we received a grant prior to the pandemic for our biomedical programming. We actually sent some money back to 1-8 because we couldn't continue it during the pandemic, just because it was just too much. We actually recovered that money. They sent it back to us, so we're going to add another course, part of the program of studies we'll talk about in January. But there's a potential to 50. We just finished writing this grant, and Mr. Ruscosi submitted it today for potential up to $55,000 in a refurbish of our engineering equipment, including potentially buying materials such as a new higher tech 3D printer, CNC milling machine for potentially expansion in the manufacturing program that we're proposing in a program of study. So we have that happening. We applied for a MyCap grant through the DESE, which is My Career in Academic Planning, where school counselors meet with individual students, which we already do, but actually tracking that now. So we've been, we just finished the grant for that, we're awarded the grant, and now we have to do some training for our counselors, which will bring it back. So we'll have kind of a pathway, and students will end up with a portfolio and be able to track their progress through their 4 years. We've also, Dr. Lazar and I worked on this grant with, I'm trying to think who else. Angie Flynn, for the Innovation Pathway grant through the DESE. And the planning grant, we were successfully awarded $25,000 for planning.
We have had conversations with consultants who have been engaged in this work. A lot of, we're learning as we're going. So we have been on a few Zoom calls and in-person visits with consultants who have worked with districts that have been successful making their way through the Innovation Career Pathways process, which is quite extensive. So we did receive the $25,000 at the end of the summer. We have applied for the Part A application, and if we're awarded that, we move on to Part B with a potential funding of $75,000 for each of the pathways. Simultaneously, the counselors are collecting a lot of information from students as well as teachers. I've seen databases, and maybe Todd, you can speak to this, where you have, students in grades 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades with their name, what they're interested in, I'd like to learn more about, and that information is proven very helpful because we want to devote our time and energy towards obviously the students and their interests and their needs. And we talk a lot about the percentage of students who are interested in life sciences and computers and engineering and trades, et cetera. And so that is important to continue and as we move forward.
Dr. Lazat mentioned this. We've done a lot of planning, consulting, and reaching out to people who've been in this space before. So we got a memorandum of understanding with our Mass Hire partner, the Mass Hire Central Regional Workforce Board, which was a critical component for applying for an innovation pathway grant. So we work with them around what the labor demands are within the region. They've identified life science, biomedical science as a regional demand, and also manufacturing as a regional demand. There's other demands that, such as hospitality and also like health workers, we're just not there yet. We thought the space that we can really work our way into are really the life sciences and the manufacturing based upon our partnerships and some of the things that we looked at in conjunction with the Mass Hire Central Region Workforce Board. We brought a consultant in. We sent students down to the Blackstone Valley Hub, workforce development. We worked with them closely around what our cohorts could look like to provide students some trade experiences through 3D printing, laser engraving, CNC stuff, welding, all those things. And we're sending cohorts there. AET Laboratory actually came out to the high school and did a physical inventory of some space, and they are looking at designing and planning for equipment. I've kind of gave my idea of what we might be looking at, and they're one of the only places around, or maybe in the state that I'm aware of, that actually does this type of planning. So we've had a good connection with AET. They've also connected us with number 8 here, Specialized Career Guidance, which we had a consult with them. I think that was last week, which we had some really great ideas from that group. Mr. Raskovsky and I participated at WPI in the Project Lead the Way conference, which had the 1-8 Foundation, a number of partners in the region. We're close with the 1-8 Foundation. We've attended DESE pathway webinars, and we've done whether it's in-person visits, teleconferences, or Zoom meetings. I don't know how many people we've met with, but a number of people who are in either innovation pathways or have employed or employ the programming within their regular comprehensive high school that don't have a Voc Tech high school or have limited access to Voc Tech high schools. So we've looked and had conversations with people of like, how do you do this? What's this look like? How do we accomplish our goals? What were your goals? So a lot of conversations with people who've done some really great work in the region, in the state.
Yes, and additionally, how do you spend your money? Your planning grant money. We hire consultant. We hire someone part-time to help lead the work. We provide stipends to folks at our high school, in addition to professional development and resources and equipment, because that question continues. We ask the question. It's a lot of coordination and work, and we're happy to do that, but we also want to be well-informed and we want to be making the right decisions at the right time. And because it's new, having, experts or those in the know help us, support us, and guide us is critical, we believe, to, not where we land in the end, because this will be ongoing, but how successful we are as we take these baby steps and larger steps along the way.
It's a labor of love.
Yes. these are just a few student testimonials from the Blackstone Valley Hub experiences. Students really are jazzed when they get off the bus. At the end of the day, they leave at just after 8 and they return about 1:45, just talking about all the things that they did and learned and what they're looking forward to the following week or so. It's been every other week, actually.
Right.
And they're fed a pizza lunch, but they are it's been a great experience, and we look forward to continuing those.
We'll be happy to
We
try
have
to
a
answer any questions you may have for us.
Great, thank you. Any comments?
And we do have a career explorations website, thanks to Kathleen Cohane again for organizing, in addition to a Jobs for Students website that I referenced earlier. If people at home or in the community would like to see, some of the work that has happened, as well as kind of hopes and dreams. And I know Dr. Sawyer will be presenting our strategic priorities in a little bit, but where we're seeking to go. So,
Great, thank you.
you're
Questions
welcome.
or comments? Lindsay?
I want to just really appreciate the incredible amount of work it takes to get these in place. So, and how comprehensively you're thinking about all of this. I know some people could say like, oh, you just want to give a kid an internship and like send them to the pizza shop. And you're like, how do we make it meaningful? How do we make it connected to their learning? How do we make sure it's developing skills that they need? And maybe it is at the pizza shop, that's fine. But like having this robust panoply of options and different ways to think about it. And I know there is in some ways potentially probably some impatience in our community about the loss from Assabet and the what are we doing. I think there's an incredible amount of work here to make sure that we're doing the right things and we're being really thoughtful. And so I'm mostly just very appreciative of that and want to double down that it makes sense to slow down and do it right. And in many ways this year, and you have lots of things already mid-flight, so I'm not trying to undersell those, but to really think about, okay, what would we really need, and what does the community need, what does the region need, what's the future job market? I mean, I don't think either of you got into education necessarily thinking that was where we would be right now, right? Like, what we got to do job analysis for the region, and so we're just in a very different space in sort of the field of education, and I think it's really exciting, and there's great work here, and I'm certainly concerned about how we appreciate your adding the finances. How do we find the finances to keep it going? We know we have building constraints. We know transportation costs are a big piece, getting kids to where they need to go. Hard to figure that out. A real, sort of equity check for us that certain kids may, because of their families, have access to all these things on their own, and we've got to be thinking about the kids who don't. And so those things can cost money and resources and time. So I'm very excited about it, and I think you're doing it in the right way. So I just want to thank you for it. And I know somebody in my house will be at the job fair tomorrow. So great.
And I think it bears repeating again that we're not looking to replicate what we've lost through Assabet. I mean, that's something the community needs to understand. We never would be able to do that. And when I look at everything that you've done in a short amount of time, while I feel bad that there are students who don't have that ability to maybe attend a traditional vocational technical school, I'm also seeing more students in Shrewsbury are getting exposure in other areas that do include voc technical, but also in business and bio. There's a lot of other things I think that are coming out of this that we didn't anticipate when Assabet numbers were reduced. But I think this is a plus for us. But on the other side, and I'm going to ask your concern, but my concern is the coordination and the capacity. And I know when I spoke to Dr. Sawyer today, I'm like, who's the point person for this? Well, we don't really have a point person. We have all these people who are working really hard to make this a reality, but you also have other jobs that you're doing at the same time. And this is a tremendous amount of work. It's for a wonderful cause for our students, but there's a lot here that needs to be done and will continue to evolve and be done. So that is my concern as we move forward. And I think as a school committee, we need to look at the budget next year and what needs might come from this work that we have a lot of people doing but may need to focus a little better on. So my question to you actually, as I get to it, is what is your main concern as you're doing all of this work?
Well,
You can answer.
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Be
Like-
honest.
So it's like scalability, like we're moving really fast. And I think we had a vision already of what we, meeting with the regional labor workforce board, they kind of told us like where the regional labor demands are. Then we focus and target our investigations around what we could possibly bring to backfill that and prepare kids to be work ready by the time they graduate. But, so I think a couple things. Scalability is an issue in terms of bandwidth for both Dr. Lozat and I think will certainly be a challenge, right? Once we get the program of studies squared away, once we get equipment we need, and then we do, like, it's constant. Training of staff, we'll have to send staff out for training, but the biggest thing is like if we're awarded innovation pathway grants, there's grant reporting requirements that require a lot of data collection from people. So I think you hit the nail on the head, like who's gonna manage this once we get this up and running, like we're gonna need someone that's gonna be dedicated to ensure that students are in the right pathway, managing the pathway, ensuring the MyCap is in place, ensuring that the data is being fed back into the DESE and looking at outcomes. And then really, I wouldn't say managing, but managing is not the right word, but in terms of our partnerships, like continue attention to our partnerships, visiting industry, ensuring that they're satisfied, and then getting feedback around what we can do better or what strengths we have and what challenges they're seeing in the workplace that we have to address through curricular programming or activities. So a number of schools they have dedicated people for innovation pathways. It's like they do that and they do career counseling as well. So it's like a career counsel piece and innovation pathway piece, so we can try and catch everyone. And we'll talk about future planning report next, but yeah, so I think it's so busy, quite frankly. And I'm thankful to have Jane with me and Angie Flynn, who have been helping, and Dave Ruscosi. I mean, really, really good partners, but I think the assistant principals at the high school are shouldering some of my load in terms of like my availability hasn't been fantastic as we're really kind of racing to get some of this stuff up and running. So, yeah, thanks to all of them, and thanks to Jane and Angie and Dave.
I'm happy to. I would say my concern, which is an ongoing concern of all of ours and a collective responsibility, is knowing our students. In a school of 1,826 or 7, I filled out completed
It's
a grant
1860
yesterday.
because we just did the
1860.
enrollments for the town meeting on Monday or Tuesday.
But, you know, how is it that we go about knowing our students and knowing when and where and how to pull students aside and say, you know, I think you would be interested in such and such. I notice that you like this. So very large school, knowing students is key. Having visited with a number of students, one in particular this summer that stands out, who stands out to me, who pulled me aside at a local restaurant, and with all sorts of worries and concerns. Dr. Lozat, I don't know what I want to do or be. And I said, I didn't either. Well, what if, you know, I'm not sure if I should go to college, or I'm not sure if I can afford that, or should I go right to work? I just don't know. But everyone else knows. No, everyone else doesn't know. So my concerns are, of course, the student well-being. And life is a journey, and we take steps that we think we should take or want to take or are interested in taking, you know, little bit at a time. So trying to calm some nerves. Additionally, encouraging adults, parents, you know, employers, teachers, counselors to really pay attention to, you know, as much as we can and as often as we can to students when they're being quiet, when they're outspoken, when they seem upset, etc. For me, that's my, you know, concern. I just don't want to leave anyone out.
Sure. I think the other piece when we think about it too is we have 7 blocks, right? We have 7 periods. Scheduling is going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge of how we try and figure it all out, how we get people depending on demand. This year we had a pretty decent demand. We were able to fit everything, but people are going to have to make choices around electives. We have graduation requirements. And typically, students have one block that they can have an elective in, so it's gonna be tricky to find out, like, people are gonna have to make some decisions about what they wanna pursue. And that'll come up,
And we have to be
later in our
creative.
program and stuff, but certainly when we think about space and scheduling, as you know from class size report and the building study stuff, it's like we're tight on space, we're tight on scheduling, and people are gonna have to really be thoughtful about how they schedule. This coming spring, we'll have our high school counselors visit Oak to make presentations around program and studies, to make sure that this is, when we roll out the final program and what this looks like, that students are well aware of what their options are. So we've already planned with that. We met with Ms. Burak and her team, Angie Flynn and I, so I think that's another step that we've taken to help ensure a smooth transition and make sure everyone is aware. We'll also have our 8th grade parent night where we invite the parents up to the high school. We can talk about our program of studies and what the options are as well. So there's a number of things that go into it, but it's a multi-dimensional,
Yeah.
faceted, really good. I wouldn't say good. It's a good problem to have because it's neat. It's really neat work, particularly when you see the outcomes of some of the high schools that are participating in this type of programming.
Forces us to think creatively.
For sure.
Great. Well, thank you for everything you're doing. We do appreciate it. Dr. Sawyer, any comments or questions?
Excuse me, want to thank Dr. Lazat, Mr. Zidlow, and Ms. Flynn, who couldn't be here this evening, for the enormous amount of work they've been doing. I know Jessica Rice, Sean Russell have been providing supports as well, who are school counselors at the high school, the assistant principal team, and Mr. Viscosi as well, who was mentioned earlier. I think that you've heard this evening information that should give you a really good sense that it is intensive work. We're taking this responsibility very seriously. I think that there is a good plan that's being developed. Things are already happening, but I think that if especially, whether we get this grant or not from the state, doing this work does not depend on it. We'll be able to do more faster if we get those grants, for sure. But we know we will be able to have some things in place for next year, outfit some of the materials and things of that with budget funding that you put aside as a school committee as part of the current fiscal year budget. There's $100,000 set aside. We did some fundraising last year through the Colonial Fund that we could access. And then we're going to need to have, as part of the conversations about next fiscal year's budget, are there things that need to get built in to our budget to make this work? And identifying, funds that might be shifted or available around providing the capacity to do it. Because I think that you identified it for sure, Ms. Fritz, that these folks don't have the capacity with their full-time jobs they already have to become, career counselors on the side and coordinators and things of that nature. Getting it up and running, I appreciate the efforts that they've put in. And I think that, again, I think we're going in the right direction. And now the next few months will be very important to sort of solidify where we're going to be. And I think that, when you're hearing next year about how things are in place, I think, much like I think about conversations we had a year and a half, 2 years ago about the RISE program, and we're seeing the fruits of that now. I think we're going to be in a similar place with some really good things happening for students. So thank you and appreciate all the information.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
And Mr. Brazillo is going to stay with us.
Thank-
Next on the agenda, we are going to have our report, future plans at the SHS class of 2023. This is a report that we get annually. We have a large report in our packet. This focuses on the colleges and universities where students were accepted and where they matriculated, including information broken down by different student demographic groups. So I'll turn it over to Mr.
I'll do my best to get this 19-page report done in as quickly as possible. Again, Angie Flynn couldn't be here tonight, but she really is the force behind this report, doing a lot of the number crunching based upon what we've seen at the high school. So just to run through this kind of trends in terms of college admissions, applications increased by 14% like across the country. Admissions officers report that student essays being really critical in terms of having a more significant role as a result of SAT, ACTs being optional. Diversity policies, again, top priority for the universities. And again, minority applications have increased by over 20%, underrepresented groups applying to colleges across the United States rather. So what's it mean for us? It means increased competition, wait lists continue to grow, colleges continue to attract international students, and I say international students are typically full-pay students. That means they can pay the full tuition. Number of students are taking a gap year to try and figure out what they want to do, this kind of career or college, trying to figure that piece out. And transfers happen, and they'll continue to rise based upon whether they feel the value's there. And again, the last bullet is focusing on value for colleges who have a lower overall cost for families. So here's the good news. We had a really successful class of 2023. We had 435 students that graduated, earned a diploma in the class. 86% of those students attended a four-year college, 9% attended a two-year college or technical school, and 5 entered the employment, military, or were undecided. We break this out by 2- and 4-year matriculations, and 95% of the 435 students graduating, a total of 413 students continued their education at a 2- or 4-year college or university. That's significantly higher than we've had in the past. Of the 413, 90% attended 4-year colleges, 10% attended 2-year colleges or tech schools, and of the 413, 57 attended public and 43 attended private schools. Again, we're trying to give a good understanding of what's happening. I think the public school numbers are up a little bit than they've been in the past. And just, again, just pie graphs around the 2-year, 4-year school on your left for the class of 2023, the 4 years in blue, the 2-year schools are in red, and then a breakdown of, in blue on the right-hand chart, 2-year public in blue, red's a 4-year public, and green's a 4-year private. These two graphs represent the total gender of the graduating class of 2023. On the left is the males. You see 84% of males will go on to 4-year colleges, 8% in 2-year colleges, and 8% have employments or other plans. And the females, we have 88% attending a 4-year college, 9% attending 2-year college, and 3% either employment or other plans. We further drilled down around subgroups as well, on special populations. So of this, in our special students who receive special education services, which is, I think, is 6% of that entire class. It's a very small number. Kudos to our special education department as we continue to get students off IEPs and reduce services when they come through the high school. 47% of those students are attending 4-year colleges or attended 4-year colleges, 35% 2-year colleges, and 18% had employment or other plans. We look at students who receive free and reduced lunch around income status. Again, 58% attending 4-year colleges, 17% entering 2-year colleges, and 25% have employment or other plans. We look at English language learner status. Again, a very small population, but we still report it out. 17% attending 4-year colleges, 50% 2-year colleges, and 33% attending or have employment or other plans. This is a chart just basically showing you the number of students that were in the class by demographic. This first column next to their race or ethnicity is a number of students. And then the next is the 2-year public, 2-year private, 4-year public, 4-year public, 4-year private schools. The number of students and percentages for each of the races that are reported out. Race, ethnicity. Give everyone a minute just to take a look at that. Applications have been relatively flat over the last 3 years, and I say flat, it's a ton of applications, with 3,300 applications, almost 3,400 applications. The number of schools applied to were down, though. It's interesting. We have 320 schools that students applied to. And again, similar to a number of schools where students were accepted, 272, and then in terms of enrollments, again, down from where a high in 2020 where we had 142 students enrolled. We have 121 schools where students enrolled. We used to break this down. I can get stats for you too, but like we try to figure out like what the number is of the highest number of applications for one student this past year was 41. If you think it's $85 to $100 per application, it's a nice chunk of change. 51 students had 15 or more applications, which is not atypical, but we've always said when people ask me what's the right number, I don't know if there's a right number. I always say like 8 to 10. I usually say 7 or 8 is a good number. I think we have more like 8 to 10, 10 to 12, but the good news is we have less people applying for more than 15 colleges. That feels like a scatter shot of I don't know where I want to go, what I want to do, and really takes more focus for people to try and narrow down their colleges they want to apply to. Again, just a bar graph of schools applied in relation to the number of applications accepted and enrolled. The green's enrolled, the yellow's accepted, and the red's applied to, where the number is still around 3,000. This year, almost 3,400 applications. So these, I think our school counseling department does an excellent job of helping students and parents navigate the college application process. We have a number of night events and planning meetings for students. We run application boot camp in the summer, which is really helpful for those that want to get a jump start on their applications, not be burdened at the beginning of the school year with starting school, starting a sport, maybe having a part-time job and doing applications. We probably have 50% of our students that will apply early somewhere, non-binding or binding. Early action is non-binding, early decision is. But a lot of early action. So November 1st deadline's pretty significant for students in our school. When we think of November 1st and we think of our counselor caseload, every counselor has about 60 kids, seniors approximately, give or take. They have to write an individual letter for every one of those kids. So you think about the letters of how you know your student and what that letter means. We have students that will apply to, the Ivies, and students that apply to specialized programs in Colorado or California, and super competitive programming too. So the key for our counselors is trying really to focus on what is the most personalized and yet insightful information they can provide admissions officers who are scanning literally thousands of these letters. A lot of our counselors, basis on a recommendation of admissions officers, have moved to a bulleted kind of letter of recommendation, where basically tell me the most important qualities this student has and give me an example of what that is. So we're trying to streamline that and make it easier for admissions counselors taking their lead, saying this is what we're looking for, with the hopes of the high school's listening, this is a good student, they listen to what we're looking for, they're making it easier on us, let's maybe accept more students, give or take, whatever. We also looked at the numbers and other comparable districts of the caseloads that other of our colleagues have in the region and across the state. The number of students that attend, and for those that are watching at home, might not be able to see this, but that's about 77% of students stay in region, that big blue part of the pie chart. Across the country, it used to be about 85% stay in region, meaning like New England or Northeast area, or if they're in California, they stay in the California or Southwest. So this is a little bit lower than what the national average is in terms of people staying within the region. And if you look at the red, the blue is New England, the red slice is New York, the green slice is the Mid-Atlantic, the purple slice is the South, and then a 4.1, the little lighter blue is the Midwest, the orange is the West, and then the international is a little slice as well. So, yeah, I think our graduates typically mostly stay around here, but we're seeing more and more students want to go to larger schools that are out of region. I think that's, for whatever reason, that's more popular than it's ever been. All right, great. I'll ask any questions you may have.
Thanks.
I thank you for presenting this. I find it interesting, and I had this conversation with Dr. Swear. So my husband is in college admissions, so I get the other end of it. So I see the prep that goes into it, and then now he's on the receiving end with all those applications and what goes into it. And he actually was part of the application boot camp over the summer, which he was very complimentary of. So, from his perspective, which then becomes my perspective, Shrewsbury does a great job of preparing kids to go off to, our students, not kids, to go off to school. But from the school counselor position, so they've got a caseload of 220, so they've got like 60-ish kids per grade level. So for their job, from grade 9 to kids walking out the door. What does that look like in terms of them preparing? Because it's not just writing the letters of recommendation. They're preparing these kids the entire way through to get them ready to do all these applications. So workload wise, they're not just sitting there just writing letters of recommendation. What else are they doing?
Yeah, so throughout, starting in grade 9, every year they're gonna meet individually with students to talk about their program course selection to make sure they're on track, like what are your goals? And the MyCap, which we talked about earlier, is one of those instruments that we haven't formally done, but we have a template that's very similar to MyCap. So part of that is looking at looking at taking career inventories, doing kind of what are your goals, what are your aspirations, and then sitting down and going through individually with each student around what their course selection will be. What level do you want to take? Do you are interested in computers? Are you interested in biology, sciences, math? Like all those questions come out. So that really works. But again, you think about the intensity of that work on top of managing what happens during the school day. Kid might be emotionally dysregulated or needs to talk to someone, so it's trying to set those meetings up with people. They also deliver curriculum in the classrooms to whole classrooms around a variety of different things, from career exploration to resume writing and a number of different things. So they're actually teaching as well. So there is a teaching component to school counseling that people might not know about. I will say this, I think counselors are grinding from summertime until November 1st, and they're using after school, and they come in on the weekends, and is the building gonna be open because we wanna work and just be quiet. So they're kind of, they spend a lot of time writing letters, which I think is, pushes some of the kids off that might need more attention in sophomore, junior year at the time, because the focus is like, we have to get these applications out. There's a lot to it for sure, yeah.
I just wanted to say, going through this for the first time, I have a senior this year, so very complimentary to that. She took part in the application boot camp. I've been to like the college nuts and bolts night this year, the financial aid night, and it's all been really well done. And working with the counseling office to get letters of recommendation out and transcripts ordered and all of that. It's been, it's just a lot to it, and I really appreciate the report and walking us through all of the information. It's very helpful. Thank you.
I have one question. I, like my colleagues, appreciate all the effort here, and have sometimes harped on our need to make sure we're paying attention to some of those special populations. So I do appreciate your pulling it out again. And I know, I think in our next presentation, we're going to be talking about some of our goals, and our goal is to talk about some of our more advanced coursework and who's in it. And so I know that's part of the pipe. I guess as a somewhat more global question, I'm wondering if we think students receiving free and reduced lunch is still the right metric to think about financial equity. If lunch is free, I know there's other reasons people might want to do it, and I know there's other benefits from sports and other things, but given its name and what it might, are we seeing the number of young people or families opting into free and reduced lunch sort of fall off? Has there been a bit of a cliff, such that maybe this number isn't really telling us as much as it used to? And that maybe is something we can address at another time. But as I start to think about the many wonderful impacts of making lunch free, obviously this had been the way to know about financial need of families. So I don't know if you have a sense of that, Dr. Sawyer. It hadn't occurred to me until I was sitting
Sure.
here.
Yeah, and the terminology may shift, and then the state's term that they're using when you see, actually our next meeting, when you see the testing reports, I believe they use the term economically disadvantaged.
Okay.
Rather than that, it's been a proxy, or had been for a long time, in terms of qualifying as a way to measure that. Over the last several years, most of the students, prior to the universal availability of meals, and even now, who essentially are certified to be qualified, is done through a direct certification with the state. So if they are receiving benefits from the state, for example, SNAP benefits or something like that, they automatically get put into your database that they are eligible. And that's been the case for some time. In terms of, families, the ones that are harder to capture, were harder to capture, and still would be for those other things like having your transportation fee waived under state law and so on. You do need to be you have to show up as qualifying somehow, and if you're not qualifying through that sort of way, but you may qualify, you need to do an application directly with us, so that that can be evaluated, and then if eligible, added essentially to be eligible for those benefits. So in terms of the terminology, that may be shifting over time as well, but it is and frankly, when the state made that change, I want to say about 6 or 7 years ago, a number of urban districts and rural districts, but particularly the urbans, were engaged with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education because they felt that they were missing a lot of kids, families that for one reason or another were not accessing other state benefits, and the state basis is Chapter 70 funding. That's part of the formula, and so some of those districts that have high rates of economic disadvantage felt they were missing out on benefits or funding that they should have been receiving for those students. So I think the state may have tweaked that over time a bit, but right now it's generally information we get through the state in terms of who's eligible.
Okay. I didn't mean to take us off topic, Ms. Russo, though, but as we look and think about sort of how are we, it somewhat gets to the point actually that Dr. Lazat made. How well do we know our students and how feel confident in the data sources? So it's good to know, and I'll save my thoughts about thoughts about counselors. I'm also paying a lot of attention to that and thinking as we move into budget cycle, it does seem like a place where we're, and I know it's been there this is not a new problem, but as we're asking more and we're saying, kids need a lot of help, and how on earth do you know if you're interested in a Pathways program and you didn't check the email? It's become almost a daily call in my house, someone saying, have you ever checked your email? And I realize that's just not what teenagers do. And so how do we communicate well? And that human connection and counselors feel like a really important link. So.
Agreed. Thank you for the report. I always find it really interesting to see where students go from year to year. Looking at the number of applications have really grown. I mean, a little flat right now, but 41 applications. But again, if we're seeing increase in competition across colleges and universities, and there's a lot of angst around this time of year for our seniors, so you can see why somebody may do that, but it's a lot of work. So it goes to what Ms. Heffernan said, worrying about the counselor numbers and the ability for them to do that work. But I think when I do look at where our students are accepted and where they matriculate, we can put ourselves up against any other school and say, the academics that these students are getting really shows, because our students get to colleges that are really hard to get into. And so thank you for everything that you do at the high school, and it's a lot of work to get our kids this, but I love seeing this report every year.
Great.
Dr.
Thank you.
Stewart, any comments or questions?
Thank you. I certainly want to thank the school counseling staff at the high school for all the work that you just heard about that they do. Our teachers at the high school who write recommendation letters for students as well. But to your point, this is a preschool through grade 12 process to prepare kids for what their next step is after they graduate from Shrewsbury High School. And I think we should be very proud that our students do have good options. I do want to commend that Ms. Flynn and the counseling department for a long time, and Mr. Zidlow and the leadership. The emphasis is not on, name brand in terms of where kids might want to be thinking about heading for their next step after high school, but rather what is going to be the right fit for you. What is going to be, help you with what your future plans might be. That certainly could change, but whether it's the, big school, small school, urban, rural, close to home, not close to home, all those elements and families are certainly working with their student, and I know accessing a lot of resources outside as well, and partnering with the school to assist with that, because it's a big process for families to focus on. I do think that as we continue to move forward, and we'll refer to this a little bit when we present the goals, how is it that we can be sure that as a public school district, making sure students who don't have the same kinds of access to purely just information because maybe their parents didn't go to college and don't have as much a sense of it. Certainly we know there are many families that are well off enough and to choose to hire assistants through consultants or whatever it might be. Many of our families don't have those kinds of resources, and they're relying on Shrewsbury High School to be able to help them navigate that process. How do we make sure that students are not, and families aren't making assumptions about what they could afford? Because we know one of the real benefits of the way that the higher education system works in the United States is that oftentimes some of the, some colleges and universities have a lot of financial aid to provide to families that have financial need. And so what the sticker price says might look like we can't afford that, don't even think about it, but in reality, it could be a very affordable choice for that student. And that's where our school counselors can be particularly helpful in helping provide that guidance. And then, how do we make sure that not just, when it comes to that senior year, but from the entering high school with what course selections they're making all the way through, how are we being sure that kids can access, the challenging course content that they're ready for, and that we can help support them in achieving, and not selling themselves short when, sometimes through a lack of confidence or a lack of, know-how or knowledge about what might make sense in terms of what a school might be looking for, because by the time you get to junior and senior year, it might be too late to really round that profile out. So those early years of high school are also important. So over the time I've been here, I think that the high school's gotten better and better at this. But we want to continue to think about how we can make sure all of our kids have good access, of opportunity to follow a path that's going to make sense for them and that they can benefit from. So again, appreciate the report. Very interesting information. We'll post it on our website tomorrow. We'll look to send that link out sometime in one of our next communications so people can see for themselves. And I'm sure they're curious as to where our graduates from last year's class ended up. So thank you, Mr. Pizzillo, and thanks again to everyone involved in the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we are going to talk about our district's strategic goals and action steps for the 2023 through 2024 school year. In April of '23, the school committee voted to approve our updated 5-year strategic plan. And in September, Dr. Sawyer presented an update on the plan and timeline for determining the year 1 strategic goals and action steps. And there's been several workshop meetings. We've met with our school councils and the parents who are represented there. We've had a leadership workshop, and we've also had a workshop ourselves to go over this, to make sure that we're hitting the mark that we want with these goals. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Sawyer.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Ms. Fritz. And I want to start around trying to provide some context for what we're experiencing in public education here in Shrewsbury as well, and it's not unique to Shrewsbury, certainly across central Massachusetts, the Commonwealth, and across the nation. And in trying to think about how to frame what it is that our educators and support staff are addressing in this post-pandemic environment is the term VUCA. And VUCA is something that, as I understand it, came up with analysts who were actually looking at the end of the Cold War and sort of the circumstances around the fall of the Soviet Union and the Eastern Communist Bloc, and what that meant and what the situation was like. And then post 9/11, it also became something that was used by foreign policy and military analysts, but it's also become a term of art in the business world over the last several years, and certainly has made its way into other kinds of organizational leadership and management pieces. And I've seen it before in different ways, but I do think that it does describe, to a large degree, what we're experiencing right now in the public education sector. And VUCA is an acronym for the terms volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And these are 4 dimensions that we are continuing to experience as a school district. One of the articles, and through Mind Tools, the references there at the bottom right, but in terms of the, how do you respond to this kind of environment? And in this case, they said, responding to volatility, you counter that with making sure you have a vision. You counter uncertainty by meeting that with understanding. complexity, you simplify by trying to achieve as much clarity as possible as an organization. And for the ambiguity, to try to respond with agility, knowing that things change very rapidly in this 21st century world. Some might argue that this has always been the case, and if you look back historically at different eras, sometimes we forget just how unsettling or volatile times were at various times over the course of history, recent and further into the past. But the reality is right now, I think, with what's going on in the world, both domestically and across the globe, these kinds of terms can apply. I think as far as what we're trying to do as a school district, we are, and I think this work to do strategic planning is important work to try to counter this kind of environment. Certainly countering volatility with vision. Our vision that we established a number of years ago now was the creation of the Shrewsbury Public Schools Portrait of a Graduate. Those key elements that are there on in the visual, remain what we're looking for to instill in our students by the time that they leave us and graduate from 12th grade at Shrewsbury High School. And that's work that we do in a variety of ways and age-appropriate ways from preschool through elementary, middle school, and high school on up. We also, have expanded upon that. We have that vision at the center. Our mission and core values have remained a real bedrock of how we approach things and what our culture is in our district. And part of the strategic planning last year, as the information that the school committee and the leadership team and school council, everyone who was looking at this work, was getting as far as feedback from meetings run by our consultant focused schools or thought exchange surveys that we did, interviews and meetings with students and faculty advisory groups. These three commitments emerged. And they're not in any particular order, but three key commitments that were the school committee approved last spring that we're making for this next 5-year plan from 2023 through 2027. A commitment to the enhanced well-being of all, which is a continuation of a priority we had in our previous 5-year plan, a commitment to educational excellence, and a commitment to optimization of our resources. And under those three commitments, we organized a number of strategic priorities. But if countering that volatility with vision, I think that we have a strong vision as a school district. As far as meeting uncertainty with understanding, one of the three commitments is this commitment to the enhanced well-being of all. There were 5 different strategic priorities that were established that I think go with the idea of understanding, trying to understand the circumstances that we see in a post-pandemic environment, whether that's students who are experiencing gaps in their academic learning, whether it's the high numbers of students who are experiencing difficulties with social and emotional maturation or mental health, making sure that we're creating opportunities to understand that, to build, as you can see there for the different priorities, a safe and inclusive culture to promote the wellness of students, but also of our staff, which is because this work is in a high-stress environment. There's no question about that. Strengthening the work we've been doing around social and emotional learning and making sure we're providing those supports. Enhancing behavioral supports and interventions because while still a small percentage of our students, it's a larger percentage of students whose behaviors are disruptive enough or concerning enough that require adult intervention in a variety of ways, and we've seen more of that post-pandemic. And then finally, something we'll report on at our next meeting, or not our next meeting, but our early December meeting, we just completed an audit with an outside group around our security and safety systems. Again, something that I wish was not something we had to spend a lot of time on, but we do each year because we know that this is, school's a very safe place statistically. Obviously, the tragedies we see playing out across the country with mass shootings is just one example of a place we have to keep paying attention to be as safe and secure as we can. As far as complexity, trying to simplify that with clarity, I think the work that we're doing around the commitment to educational excellence tries to achieve that. There were 4 strategic priorities established there, and really with an emphasis on making sure we're reaching all of our kids as a part of our mission as a public school district. providing all kids with high-quality learning experiences in every classroom every day, and making sure that the high-quality teaching that Shrewsbury has long been known for remains, and that we continue to evolve, just as any profession does, with best practices in the field. Going with that, closing gaps. We know, like every other school district in the Commonwealth, high achieving, but there are gaps between different demographic groups of students. And how do we make sure all of our kids are getting access of opportunity and the ability to achieve, regardless of what their demographic background might be. Advancing career and technical education, you just heard a big report about that. That's an example of something that is part of that volatility. A few years ago, that would not have been something as much on our screen because those students had an opportunity to go to Assabet. In this case, we have to ramp that up ourselves, and that's certainly an important priority. And then finally, something that we've done, I think, in pockets in a variety of ways well over time, but really instituting systems so that we're using data effectively to inform the work that we're doing. That cycle of inquiry, making sure that our students have access to the right kinds of supports and resources because we're able to see the data that tells us who needs that help, who's ready for more. And that's something that I think our educators are responding to very well. But it's a shift in practice and for many in one way or another, and it's something that will continue to strengthen over time. The third commitment we're making around optimization of resources, a lot of this is sort of district level pieces. The first two, well-being, educational excellence, those are central to the classroom and everything that we do. In terms of resources, it's about supporting those things that are happening in the classroom by making sure we have, as you can see, a strong financial foundation, that we are hiring terrific people and trying to move to be able to have a staff that better reflects the demographics of the students that we serve and families and community. Maximizing those partnerships with the family and community and allocating the resources we do have strategically and equitably so that, again, all of our students are having good access to a great education. And then last, but certainly not least, making sure that we have the right facilities. Our community has been wonderful about investing in school facilities over the last quarter century. That's work that we're going to be continuing to do. And that's whether that's the formal request we've already made of the Mass School Building Authority to expand Shrewsbury High School because of the overcrowding there, or the work we're doing with the pre-K through grade 4 capital planning study committee around what are the next steps now that we have the new Beal School, what's next on the horizon for investments in our pre-K through grade 4 environment. So these are all important as well, and I think the idea captured, if you look in the gold box there, we're talking about building efficient and effective systems. And I think when you're talking about being able to respond with agility to the ambiguity that's in the environment, if you have strong systems, you're better able to do that. Which brings me to something that Ms. Fritz mentioned in introducing this topic. Those strategic priorities and commitments were approved last spring by the school committee. Since then, and that was based on a lot of feedback, lots of feedback from the community. I think we had a pretty clear sense that these represent what people were looking for and felt was most important. And that was approved last spring. This fall, we did receive feedback, and again, with help from our consultant-focused schools from all 9 of our school councils. A workshop with the leadership team and the school committee to further distill that information and further work with the school committee leadership team to sort of figure out, like, what is it that we can do this school year that's manageable and that's reasonable to advance these 5-year priorities. And so, and how do we build systems that are going to help that last? It reminded me of this quote from James Clear, the author of the book Atomic Habits, who suggests that it's wonderful to set goals and it's important to set goals, but ultimately, if that's all you do, it can be iffy whether you meet them. Because you don't tend to rise to the level of your goals, you tend to fall to the level of your systems, whether that's true of whether that's as an individual trying to meet your things that you're setting out for yourself, or as an organization, what you're trying to accomplish. So there are goals that are in the document, and it's a document that's in your packet that you've had a chance to review, I know, and I'm happy to answer any questions about what the contents. But these are some examples of some process goals that'll help us develop those systems that we're saying for this year that advance towards those 5-year priorities. We have a group working with Dr. Lazat, volunteers of staff from across the district, working on a very focused staff wellness program to address staff well-being. The pre-K to grade 6 literacy initiative, that's work that we're doing around training and professional development and shifts in practice. We are doing, in all of our elementary and middle schools, students are taking assessments multiple times a year, and if they're not hitting certain benchmarks, we are systematically putting supports in place for those students to help them move towards those benchmarks and get that support through academic interventions. Our high school is expanding their course options for pathways, for one example that we talked about tonight, and they're looking to expand that further next year and update the course selection process so that we can make sure kids know what they have access to, and we're looking to help make sure that students are striving for the best they can be, just as I mentioned at the end of that report. And then the Teacher Diversification Project, which has been in place now formally for a year plus, and continues around how do we identify talented staff who represent a variety of diverse backgrounds. So those are some process goals that are within what we're trying to accomplish this year. In terms of performance goals, these are also important metrics to sort of see where are we in terms of our student performance, student academic progress. Ones that are in the document that I pulled out here just as examples. We're looking, for this year, which we think is an achievable goal and not too much of a stretch. We think with the emphasis we're putting on it, but to move the needle by 5% in terms of the number of students who are meeting the grade level benchmark on the STAR reading assessment, which is an assessment we give internally. We're also looking those students who are accessing those and qualifying those academic interventions. Over the course of this year, we're hoping to reduce that number by 10%, that 1 in 10 of those students who are currently not meeting benchmark on those internal assessments by the time June comes around will not be requiring those. Looking in terms of the area of well-being and social emotional learning, through the Panorama survey, students answer a number of questions that then Panorama says in a category, these are favorable responses around feeling that there's a sense of belonging. We want to see that from, we just got some baseline data for this year that was just taken. We want to see those numbers move up by 5% by the last assessment in the spring of 2024. And we're looking to meet state targets. The state sets a lot of accountability targets for us. And one that has been a relatively new one, and they just restarted the accountability process this year after it not being in place for a couple of years because of the pandemic, is around what percentage of your high school students are taking advanced courses. And that doesn't just mean AP. It can mean other, certain kinds of math courses qualify. The state actually identifies courses that do. Project Lead the Way courses count as advanced courses. So there's a variety of things, but how do we make sure that all of our kids, and if we have discrepancies in gaps where certain demographic groups are not accessing some of those courses, we need to identify why that might be, and think about ways we can support so that we can have more access where that is reasonable and appropriate. So that's something that's on our screen as some performance goals that are part of this one-year plan. At this point, I think it's important to mention some key caveats. First off, and we'll share this on our website tomorrow, and I'll share it out with our faculty and staff. We worked really hard to not add new things. The work that's happening that are in this goals document is work that's already underway. So for the staff who have been involved, and it isn't like we waited till November to say, okay, let's start this stuff. This is work that we've been doing. We wanted to get the formatting and the pieces right because we think this will be a format we can use going forward over this entire 5-year plan. But this is work that's been underway in many cases for multiple years or a year plus. Some we're engaging with it this year. But most of them, like the Literacy Initiative, for example. Then there have been, in this VUCA environment, some unexpected things. We did not expect to have an emergency homeless shelter open in the community at the tail end of last school year. So there is a goal about responding to that. That's work we're doing, have been doing since that opened, and it's important to capture that, I think, because we don't want people to look at this document and say, well, this is a bunch of extra stuff on top of the stuff we're already doing day to day. Now, capturing everything we do day to day would take 1,000 pages. There's so much that happens in the schools every day. And the purpose here is to try to focus on the things we're really, aiming to improve that are key, that we're using our professional development time for resources and a variety of things. The other piece that I think is worth mentioning, while there are some elements that are addressed by lots of people across the district, social emotional learning, making kids feel that they belong, that's everybody's job. Different roles are going to do that in different ways. Things that are more specific but heavy lifts for a lot of people across a big wide span would be the literacy initiative. Every one of our teachers in pre-K through grade 6 who teaches reading or English language arts is involved in that in one shape or another. So that's really key. Other pieces, like that pre-K to 4 capital planning committee, for example, are going to involve our principals at the elementary level. It's going to involve Mr. Girardi, myself, a couple members of the school committee, and some volunteer staff one from each of those schools. But for the vast majority of our staff, that's not going to be on their screen, and it's not going to be work that they're doing. So a lot of the goals are, people who might have volunteered to come forward, or it's a team that is focused on that particular area and doesn't affect a wide range of folks. So it varies depending on what that is. But when someone looks at the document and says, boy, am I responsible for all of this? No, I mean, there's certain things that, depending on one's role, you're going to be engaged with more than others. So again, the whole purpose of this is to focus on what's important. We're trying to focus our time, our effort, our resources in ways that are going to make positive differences for our students, for our families, and for our staff, in the areas that they told us last year are important to them, so we can move this forward over the course of this 5-year plan. So with that, I just took a couple of excerpts for those who are watching can see what the document looks like. Under each of the commitments, there are a few different priorities. This is an example of the first priority listed under well-being. You can see that there's a couple of goals that we've outlined under the strategic priority of ensuring a safe and inclusive culture. That first goal is around professional development for staff. The first bullet, we've already accomplished this on the Professional Development Day in October. A large number of our paraprofessionals received training around understanding and responding to bias. We're in the third year of a 3-year cycle where all of our professional staff will have taken the internal course that we developed with some outside experts a few years ago called Becoming an Equitable Educator. So that's important work that some of our staff are doing this year. Others have done it the previous 2 years. We're doing a monthly professional development just for our district leadership team in this area. So again, we wanted to capture that as part of how we're moving this goal forward of providing additional professional development and training. The second goal you can see on the screen there is that responding to the needs of this significant increase in newcomer students, some of who are part of the emergency shelter, some who are not, but who have English language learning needs. So the actions we have been taking already. We've received state funding direct for this work. We're investing it in a variety of ways. We're redeploying some clinical staff as needed to address things. Things are moving forward in a very constructive way as a result. But we wanted to capture this work because although it's new and it was unexpected, it certainly falls into the auspices of making sure that all our kids are getting what they need. So this is what the format looks like in the document. This next excerpt is from the first priority around educational excellence. That first goal is around implementing the next phase of the literacy program for pre-K through 6. Making sure we have research-based instruction and high-quality materials. We want to be sure that we're shifting instruction in a way that is aligned with those things. So that's one of those process goals that I spoke about earlier. The second goal on the screen is around, again, focused on the leadership team, where some of the work around this idea of ensuring high-quality teaching and learning means that we want our instructional leaders to be learning more about best practices in the field right now around how do we get students to be accessing appropriately challenging assignments that require student engagement and high-level thinking. But that's only applied to our leadership team this year. So we want to we're trying to be as clear as we can be about who's responsible and who's affected this year by these. In this last excerpt out of the optimization of resources, that first goal under partnering with the community around keeping our finances strong is making sure that we're maximizing our resources. You heard it earlier tonight, grant funding that we're trying to access around our career technical education, the capital campaign for the RISE program to provide even more opportunities for those students, making sure that when state funding becomes available for things like high quality instructional materials or other things connected, that we're trying to access those funds. Trying to do philanthropic fundraising through our Colonial Fund. All things that we think are important and we wanted to capture that's under this financial piece. And then, of course, to the school committee, particularly important goal is the ongoing partnership with the select board around making plans for the eventual successor plan for the operational override that happened in 2021, so that we can maintain the financial stability that we've enjoyed over the last few years as a school district. So there are many more goals in the document that you've had, and I'm happy to answer any questions about them, but this, I think, gives those watching a flavor of kind of what it's capturing. And again, it's capturing work that is already underway or was already planned for. So again, just to summarize, we're trying to respond to this VUCA environment. Again, we don't want a set of goals and action steps to feel like it's something extra layered on top of the core of what we're doing, but rather it's taking the core of what we're doing and identifying the things that our school communities told us is most important and finding ways to make improvements so that we can make things better. And where we have volatility, through our vision, hopefully make it less so. Where there's a feeling of uncertainty, build some understanding. Where there is complexity, clarity around what we are focused on and what we're saying yes to, and it makes it easier to say no to other good ideas, but we only have so much capacity and resources, and we need to focus those. And where there is ambiguity about people not really sure about what's happening, or there's a lot of changes and things that happen quickly, building systems so that we can shift gears as we need to and make sure that as things change, we can respond to them in ways that are reasonable. So again, I'll leave you with the quote around not rising to the level of your goals, but falling to the level of your systems. But we're not here because of a system. We're here because of the people. And those people are our students. Those people are the families who send those students to us and entrust them to us. And it's our colleagues in all these different roles across the district, from our support staff to our educators to our leadership team, to make sure that we're supporting them for these three commitments: to everyone's well-being, to educational excellence, to optimizing our resources to make those things happen in order to best serve our people. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the goals document itself, and would ask that, because you're so familiar with it, approve it tonight so that, again, it has your imprimatur, and we're able to publish that and make it clear all the excellent work that's happening across the school district to try to make things work as well as they can for our students.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Yeah, when we began this process, Joe, well over a year ago, I wasn't quite sure where we would end up, but I'm very happy with where we have ended up. It's been a lot of work, and I'm certainly appreciative of the partnership with Focus Schools, but we do planning to bring some clarity for people, and I do agree that the world feels a little, the number of things, even our presentations tonight, right? The complexity in the delivery of education from what one might have imagined in a more parochial view has grown tremendously. And I think that it's important to sort of to take a moment, set some goals. That doesn't mean we don't reassess them. That doesn't mean the conditions don't change. But my hope as well is, as there are educators in our district that I'm friends with, on a more personal level, is the feeling that there's so many things that actually this helps us to crystallize and sometimes to say no to things, because there's lots of shiny ideas in education too. And we've sort of said, this is the course of action. And until we have a good reason to make the change, this is a path forward. So there's great stuff in here. I think it's wonderful to build on all of the good work that's happening and kind of pull it all together and kind of weave it to say, how each piece connects to the other. So I'm really excited. I'm excited to have some ways to communicate how we'll know if we're doing well, and that is a process of measurement. And I think in the role that we're in, that's an important piece, that for the taxpayer, for the parent, for the business entity that's trying to decide if they want to get engaged in this partnership, that we're trying to monitor our performance too, and that is having both process goals and outcome goals. I'm all in, and I'm really happy and appreciate the leadership you've brought to kind of get us to where we are. I know there's a whole team behind you, and Amy deserves lots and lots of credit as well. But I'm happy with where we're at tonight, so I'm very happy to vote to support moving this forward.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank everyone that's been involved in developing the goals and action steps. There's a lot of extremely thoughtful work that went into all of this. And these goals reflect all of the excellent work that's already ongoing in the district. I really love the format of how this has been developed. I find the document to be very accessible, and I would encourage people to take a look at it, because how it's laid out, we spell out what the goals are, what the priorities are, but then also now it's what staff is responsible, as Dr. Sawyer went through. And I feel like it's a very clear way to kind of access a lot of information. I like how that we've set these performance goals for determining progress. I think they're going to be extremely helpful, and I'm very supportive of approving these goals and action steps for the 2023-24 school year.
I will echo that I'm appreciative of all the work that's gone into this and the number of people and opinions that this wasn't a document, like we said, that this isn't a document that the schools just came up with and said this is what's going to happen. This had feedback from staff, parents, community members. This has a lot of input, and this has gone through many different versions. I too am in support of this, and I think that this has goals that we can meet this year, and again, because this has seen different versions, and getting feedback from staff, there were things that were taken off that we weren't sure that was necessarily the priority for this year, and that we didn't want to put extra on anybody. And I think it's great that it's really helpful when everybody else can look at this, to see exactly what the goals are and who's responsible for it, because this does look like it's a huge document. It can be very overwhelming, but when you actually read through it and break it down and see, it's manageable. And I appreciate that, and I think a lot of people who will be involved in this appreciate it too. So I do also lend my full support to the goals for this year.
Right. And I think my favorite thing that we did was hiring Focus Schools and having that consultant to help us, because when this process started, it did seem a little overwhelming, and where were we going? What did we want to do? What were we doing well? So there was a lot of help focusing, and it also reflects voices of all stakeholders. Everyone who needed to have a voice did have a voice in this. And I know after we met with the leadership team at our workshop as a school committee, we added another workshop because we had heard feedback that we felt we wanted to talk about more our own perspective, but as well as from our staff. So I think this just really reflects, we're not reinventing the wheel, but it's a focused and flexible roadmap as we go forward. And bears repeating, because equity is not a separate point, but it is embedded throughout all of our action steps and goals, and something that we are continuously working on as a district. So I'm very supportive of this. I think it's turned out well. It's easy to follow, but it's flexible, and we're going to see as we progress. And again, having data and metrics, something we already do as a district, but having a little more focus on that from a system standpoint as we look at what is needed, and from a school committee perspective, how do we fund these things? I think it's very helpful. So fully supportive. Anything further, Dr.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad you mentioned Ms. Fritz, and I want to be sure to mention that when the leadership team met with the school committee to go over an earlier draft of some of these pieces and looking at it, I appreciate the fact that each of you as members listened to what their questions and concerns were relative to what's happening in our schools. It is a challenging environment. we have wonderful people who are doing hard work every day. And, there are some challenges that, may be limited or in pockets in different places, but they're very significant. Again, this is not new news, but most of our kids are doing really well, but too large a percentage of our kids are struggling with mental health issues or social and emotional issues. There are students who are doing very well academically, but there are kids, and depending on where they were developmentally when the pandemic happened, who have some gaps that we're working hard to close. And I think that, I just continue to be impressed with the hard work that our staff are doing to try to, bring the best they can every day for our students. But, when things arise that are take time and energy, things can, someone's day can change in an instant, and all of a sudden you don't get to move forward the things that you would hope to move forward that day. So I do not want to undersell that it is a very complex environment, but at the same time, I think, I am very hopeful and optimistic overall, because I believe in the capacity and the skill that our staff brings to the work, for the support that we've always received from our families collectively in Shrewsbury and the community. We have a wonderful leadership team. I also do want to commend Amy Clowder for the work she's put into this work in particular, but our entire leadership team and the support we have from the school committee, because you just have to read the news now and then to see that there are other places where there's more focus on political infighting and scoring points than there is on trying to move an organization forward. And we're very fortunate to have a committee that's focused on how do we support the work that we need to do to benefit our students. So thank you, and appreciate the support, and we'll look forward to reporting out on how things are going as we move through the coming year. And it's year one of a 5-year plan. There's urgency, but I think thoughtfulness around this is a long-term approach.
Great, thank you. So we do need to vote. So may I have a motion that the committee vote to approve the enclosed proposed district strategic goals and action steps for the 2023 through 2024 school year as
So
presented?
moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next we have our FY25 budget priorities, guidance, and calendar. This was presented at our meeting on October 25th by Mr. Girardi, and a draft was posted. I don't think we've had any feedback at the school committee level. I don't know if you've had any feedback through your, nothing? So no feedback? So I'll turn it over to you. Any questions, comments, anything new to add?
No, I think it's the theme of the night is around us being strategic in a time where things are volatile, right? The VUCA I thought was nice, but this provides a nice opportunity for clarity around our budget development between school committee and ourselves at the school level, of being clear where we're planning as far as where the funding is going for FY25, the work that we'll do together along the way, but to be really proactive with the planning and not be reactive to the things that get in our way on a given day. So having said that, we haven't had much other feedback, and if there aren't any other questions, certainly curious to seek your approval for the budget guidelines and the calendar.
Great, thank you. And I think you raised that point. This is our roadmap for the budget as we move forward to the next year. It seems like we just finished the last one. And for anyone who is looking at the school committee budget as we discuss it, including any of the other boards or committees in town, can see what our priorities are. And it all ties together with our strategic goals and priorities. So I think it's a nice segue into this. Any questions or comments? Anybody? Anything further, Dr. Sawyer? Nothing? So we do need to vote on this as well. May I have a motion that the committee vote to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget priorities and guidance as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we will have a report on the Assabet Valley Collaborative. We are required by state law to have 4 updates each year to member school districts, and Dr. Sawyer will provide the first update for this calendar year. or this school year, I should say.
Yes, thank you. This is a required report by state law a number of years ago. There was a collaborative in another part of the state that had some significant fiscal impropriety, and there was some legislation that was passed and regulations to make sure that the operation of these organizations was more transparent and public, especially to the school committees that were make up the districts that form the collaboratives. Collaboratives were formed as under state law back in the 1970s as a way for to create an economy of scale, so that programming where there may be students that there wouldn't be enough in a particular district to put together a single program, but by banding together with other districts in cooperation, programs that were more robust and cost-effective could be created. There are a number of programs that Assabet provides to its member districts and also non-member districts who pay a higher price to access them, from their Orchard Street Academy, which is a therapeutic day school for students in the upper middle and high school ages who are struggling with behavioral health. They have the Evolution program, which is an 18 to 22 transition program that we have some students participating in. Still, essentially, the RISE program is the program that has been replacing that for our purposes, just because of the numbers we've had. But the Evolution program is a terrific program that Assabet provides as well. They have a program called REACH, which is for extremely medically fragile students with very significant medical and developmental disabilities. And so, these are the kinds of programs that, by working with these other Central Massachusetts districts, they can be cost effective. The most important program, I shouldn't say important, the most, probably the largest program that we're participating in is the transportation, specialized transportation to out-of-district placements. Assabet Valley Collaborative has a contract for providing those kinds of van services to its member districts, where by bidding as a consortium, essentially, you get a better deal and the pricing is better than if each district was going to go it alone. That has been a very difficult environment this past few years for sure, but especially this year. The driver shortages that the vendor with the contract, Vanpool, has had has meant that there have been families who have not been able to access that transportation. It's been a major problem. We appreciate the work Assabet's been doing to work through it, and our special education office helping families from Shrewsbury who may have been affected. But over time, that's one of the programs that's been most cost-effective for the member districts in terms of providing a service that would be difficult for individual districts to provide in a financially effective manner. So those are a few elements of what happens. The document in your packet has links to the various guidelines and regulations and responsibilities that member districts have. This really hasn't changed much over time. There's also a reference to the goals of the collaborative this year, some of the elements. Professional development is something that they've also been have provided to districts that during the post-pandemic it hasn't happened as much, but they're starting to ramp back up with that as well, and over time that's something we've benefited from as well. So with that, this is one of the updates we're required to provide, and would be happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
Any questions or comments? No? Well, thank you for your first update.
Yeah.
Okay, next is approval of minutes. We have our minutes from our school committee workshop held on October 18th and the school committee meeting held on October 25th, 2023. Are there any changes or corrections? Nope, seeing none, these can be marked as accepted as distributed. And we do need to go into executive session this evening for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. Purpose 7, Open Meeting Law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22FG, for the purpose of reviewing, approving, and/or releasing executive session minutes. And B, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect of the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Purpose 3, the Shrewsbury Education Association Units A and/or B, the Shrewsbury Paraprofessional Association, and/or the Cafeteria Workers Association, where deliberation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and we will return to open session only for the purpose of adjourning for the evening. May I have a motion that we adjourn to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote is required. Ms. Rappaport?
Aye.
Ms. Boucher?
Aye.
Ms. Heffernan?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Thank you and good night.